Nice. At least I see us here. Go live.
Well, I went to the link to go live, and it's four of us waiting, but I don't see it live yet. But I'm gonna go out and come back in.
Okay, here we go. All right. I think we got it. I see us on YouTube. I hear us there.
I see it still. Let me try this. I went to the link to go. I see it still.
All right. So let's pretend like we just got here. What's up, y'all?
What's going on, What's going on, Dr. Murphy?
Hey, good to see you again, Sister Meshelle, the indie mom of comedy. And
Good
it's
to
good
see
to meet
you
you,
too.
good brother, Mike Troy.
Same here. Same here.
I really appreciate y'all being available this evening, to talk about all the wonderful work that you're doing, especially this major event. It's not just a show. You have a major event coming up this Thursday night in Baltimore.
Yes, way to say it correctly, Dr. Menzise. You hit it with the D, the Baltimore. You ain't go Baltimore.
I'm not born in Baltimore, but I've been in Baltimore long enough. I've been given honorary Baltimore status. So
that's good stuff. That's how I am in Brooklyn. That's what I'm like that in Brooklyn, New York. So I get diplomatic immunity in every
So what is it? Baltimore? That's how you say it? You gotta say
wait
it
a
down.
minute. Uh-oh.
He's so Brooklyn. Baltimore. You just roll it, Baltimore.
It's just Baltimore.
It's Baltimore.
So wait a minute, you from Brooklyn, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Oh, nice. Okay, Brooklyn's oh, there it is. Brooklyn be everywhere. You're right.
Yes,
Brooklyn
sir.
be everywhere, son.
You got to throw the sun in there.
And so, Meshelle, you're originally from Baltimore, right?
Originally from Baltimore, living both in Brooklyn and in Baltimore, splitting my time between these two amazing cities. Back in Baltimore as of a day or so ago, we had to do an interview yesterday with Fox News, but always home. Baltimore is always home. Now, I do enunciate the T from time to time, so don't get it confused. But I can switch into my Baltimore in a minute.
Right. It just depends on, who you're talking to and what you're talking about.
Exactly.
You mentioned you was over on Fox, so you had to put the T back in there. So we was over on Fox News, and so we were in Baltimore.
Go ahead, Dr. Lizzie. Go ahead there. Go on there.
That's dope, though. So, Mike, you from Brooklyn, born and raised?
Yes, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, all my life, but lived all over the world.
Okay, all right. Yeah. And so let's jump into this conversation. Let's talk about y'all's background in comedy. And so, of course, we go ladies first. So, Meshelle, we've known each other for quite a few years. Trying to figure out. I know Dr. Wimbush connected us initially, but we got a lot of friends and family in common. So we family too. So you're my play cousin from Baltimore.
Natty, you're my play cousin from the Natty.
Know what I mean? So tell us a little bit about your background in comedy, how you got started. Bring us up to speed with you.
So I got started on a dare right out of college. I'm a proud graduate of the oldest HBCU in Maryland, the Bowie State University, sixth oldest HBCU in the country. And so, when I was studying in college, I was studying psychology. And when I first got out of college, I was working for Baltimore City for a pilot program called Reaching Families Early. And we were charged with going into hospitals and homes to inform families that they could get early intervention services and evaluations for children who were born either addicted to substance as a result of their prenatal experience or high risk for that because of the prenatal experience. And so I was in East Baltimore. I'm a zone 15 girl. I'm Park Heights all day. But when I started working for the city, for the health department, I was going to East Baltimore, and only people in Baltimore would understand. I ain't know nothing about going over East. That's called, we say, live over East, live over West. I was Northwest. I was right below Israel, right in Park Heights. And so I didn't know much about the East Side, but went over there and I saw so many things. Dr. Menzise, I saw so much in those homes and in the hospitals and the NICUs. And I was pretty green. I had never really seen that kind of trauma inflicted on a small baby as a result of, the in utero experience. And so it really was hard to see. A lot of the young women were my age, and they were on their third and fourth baby. And it was just rough. And I would go, I remember that's when the projects, the high rise was still in East Baltimore. And I would have to go in there. And that's when the Nation of Islam was actually, the fruit was the security in the building. So whenever you worked for the city, they would escort you up to an apartment, try to ensure that you would be able to provide services. But I would be in some of those apartments, and I'm talking to the sisters, and my heart would just ache because I'm like, golly, like just one choice got you over here struggling with addiction or struggling with a lifestyle that put your baby, an infant, in harm's way. But in the midst of that, it was a lot of, this is gonna sound crazy, a lot of funny stuff that was happening too in these apartments and in these buildings. And I would come back to the office with my other colleagues, and my colleagues were all HBCU graduates as well, Morgan State, Coppin State, and we were all behavioral science majors. And so you had your social workers, you had your psychologists, you had your sociologists. We were all into early intervention. And I would just tell stories about stuff I saw, and I would have them dying laughing. But I've been telling stories my whole life.
Yeah.
And they used to be like, "You are so fun. You should be a comedian." I was like, "No, I'm going to get my PhD. I'm just home working to get some experience." Long short of it, this was when Monique was still in Baltimore, and she had a comedy club called Monique's.
Wow.
And here I was, fresh out of college, and my coworkers wrote down everything I said in the lunchroom, and when I would come back in from the field, and they were like, "We put you in the contest." I said, "What contest?" So they put me in an open mic contest. And I was like, "I'm not a comedian." They said, "We all gonna come." So after work, one day, we all went to the open mic contest. I got up there and I told the stories from off the page. They literally wrote down all my stories. Wow. Or the premises of them. And I just started telling stories, and that people were dying laughing. And and I've never been addicted to anything, but if there was an addiction, I got hooked that night. There was a Pookie from New Jack City situation, and it kept calling me. So when I won the open mic, I ended up going there. I was invited back every week to just keep performing, and they would just come with me, and I tell more stories about what happened in the field, and I start talking about my family, and everybody was cracking up. So I got my first professional gig at Monique's Comedy Club, which was ironic because she had known me the majority of my life because her and my older sister were classmates, and so. That's how I got started. But right after I got the bug, I got accepted into the doctoral level program at Temple University. I had to leave Baltimore and move to Philly. So it didn't end because once I got to Philly, I started looking for open mics. I was like a crackhead. I would be in classes, taking classes for a PhD, and then running to the clubs. And that's how it started.
Oh, wow. That's pretty dope. So
as a dare?
It was a dare. It was a dare by my coworkers.
Wow. So you're definitely living on purpose, right? Because, you said you went from Baltimore to Philly, PhD program, and, so you've got the best of both worlds. You're living your passion, and it's from an informed perspective. You can't hardly beat that.
The thing I'm going to say about that is I had a whole lot of pivots and a whole lot of pivots along the way. A lot of my colleagues, a lot of the class of my incoming comedians went on to really tour the world and to, get on these tours and do HBO and do BT. And right after I came out, I met my husband and I was all in, and brother asked me to marry him. And after that, I started having babies. I wasn't out there like everybody else. So I really had to pivot real hard. And I would try to stay on stage, but raising 3 babies, natural home birth, breastfeeding, all of that, it wasn't really conducive for being on Def Jam and Comedy Central and all of that. So I would say in the last 7 or 8 years, I've hit my stride, and now I'm actually working full time. I was always working I was a full-time mom, but now I'm able to just without hesitation, really explore. That's where I came up with Indie Mom, because I was on television shows pregnant. I was a Nickelodeon pregnant, stuff like that. But I gotta tell you, I've known who this guy is, Mike Freud, also known as Brooklyn Mike in our industry. I've known who he was before I never ever met him. And so it was kind of weird and kismic and serendipitous when the producer that I was working with at the time connected us. So I'm gonna let him tell, not let him, but I think it'd be interesting.
We're about to pivot to Brooklyn, Mike.
Like that, brothers. I didn't mean it like that, brothers.
No, we got it, sister. We got it. We're gonna pivot to Brooklyn, Mike. I'm glad you brought up why you called yourself the Indie Mom. I was gonna ask you about this, so that's dope. Brooklyn Mike, talk to us, brother. How you get started in comedy, man?
I attended Shaw University, where I graduated with a BA in criminal justice, and my minor was theater. And on the way back home from graduation, I got accepted to go to Quantico to be an FBI agent.
Oh, wow.
And I drove past Virginia, never looking back, went to New York searching for some stages, and got on stage and never looked back. It's my passion. I've done everything. Def Jam, BET, you name it, I've done it. I am the only American comic that has a residency in Europe for 15 years.
Oh, wow. So tell me about
US Army, been through all US Army, was in the military, all that good stuff.
Okay, so tell us about that residency though in Europe.
Yes, it's called a Bounce Comedy Tour. And it actually travels, at one time we were going to England, Germany, it's throughout the Netherlands. So we perform at all the cities in the Netherlands and England and Germany and France.
Wow. You say 15 years?
Yeah, I've been there 15 years.
Okay, man, that's pretty dope, bro. Like you said, the only.
Yeah.
Man, go on and, go and brush it off. So you say from Brooklyn to the Netherlands, huh? Who do that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So speaking of Brooklyn, did you get a chance to, either one of y'all get a chance to attend any of the 50th year anniversary for hip hop celebrations?
Yeah, how could you not? I mean, every day somebody is doing something. We actually was at Spike Lee. Me and Meshelle was just at Spike Lee, Michael Jackson and Prince party.
Oh, wow.
This past, was it Sunday?
It was epic. So he does this annually. Started off as block parties. He would select block parties in Bed-Stuy. And then he went from block parties in Brooklyn to actually commandeering the entire Fort Greene Park. Wow. And so this past weekend, he had his MJ Prince party at Fort Greene Park. Never want to miss it again in life. It was by far one of the best experiences I've ever had for an outdoor party. And the music, of course, was epic because it was all MJ and Prince. It was just amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty mega. So I listen to Rock the Bells radio a lot, Uncle L. And so, of course, I heard all the interviews taking place. I watched Professor Griff talk about when he, came into Brooklyn and all the people he saw. I mean, that had to be a majestic moment. It had to be a powerful experience,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So who are some of y'all's comedy influences, though? Of course, Monique. I mean, I've heard you mention Monique a couple times.
I mentioned that I started in her club, but let me qualify. I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And so I gravitate towards storytelling, anecdotal comics. And so, good, bad, or indifferent, some of my favorites are some of the most controversial as well. Like, I believe that Bill Cosby is one of the best storytelling comics that ever did it. He's one of my favorites. And of course, Moms Mabley, Jackie Moms Mabley, by far, I'm smitten by what she did in her time. She was ahead of her time.
Yes.
And I love how she just navigated from the Chitlin circuit and from vaudeville or whatever to the White House. She became the first lady's, confidant, I just loved how she commandeered all of that. And then, of course, I love Whoopi Goldberg, one of the master storytellers, the characters that she could create. I mimicked her entire 1987 Broadway show. And remember doing the old raisin when I was in college, one of the bits from her set, not knowing it was stealing at the time. And it wasn't even stealing. It was more like I was paying homage to her. Yeah. But I would never do that now, do somebody else's content word for word, but I did hers word for word and got laughs. Nice. So Whoopi Goldberg, and of course, I absolutely adore the late, great Bernie Mac, one of the master storytellers from the Midwest. I loved his cadence. I loved his unapologetic style. And I'm also a fan, quite frankly, of Richard Pryor and Dick Gregory. And really enjoy the storytelling comics, really do. And Wanda Sykes, really enjoy the storytelling comics. So yeah, those are basically my influences. And to be honest, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was a Carol Burnett, and while Carol Burnett was not a stand-up, me and my sister watched Carol Burnett every Friday night. And so I loved improvisation. I loved her ability to just jump into characters, because I do characters as well. But I loved her ability to jump into characters and just take you on these journeys and make you think she really was Mrs. Wiggins, and that she really was those characters. And so yeah, those are some of my faves.
I I didn't have any comedians that influenced me. I liked Rule for their different styles. I like Charlie Chaplin, Lenny Bruce. I like Carlin. I like Chappelle. I like Rock.
Which Rock?
Yeah, I like Chris Rock. I actually worked with him. This whole year was on the writing team of that. What was it? The Outrage tour he just did.
Selective Outrage.
When I think about it, and in comedians, we all get asked that question, who you want, and there wasn't. And I like Meshelle said, I love Bernie Mac. I just love the different comedians for their different styles. But Charlie Chaplin, I really like him because you got to remember,
silent.
He did a lot of silent movies and made people laugh.
Right. So he was more of the expression type.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you shout out your homie, Chris Rock. That's that Bed-Stuy Do or Die.
Bed-Stuy Do or Die. Chris is a good dude.
Yeah.
We were with him on at the MJ Prince party.
Wait up! Don't forget, Eddie is from Brooklyn too.
Okay.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy and Charlie. Can't forget Charlie. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, so, gone too soon, man. Charlie Murphy, he was just getting out there good, Wow.
Yeah.
And he had a different kind of funny about him. He was a storyteller, right? The whole skit with him on the Chappelle show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And Mike happened to be on set during some of those things because he did some characters, he did some supporting stuff on the Chappelle show.
Yeah, I was the bartender in the Rick James sketch.
Oh, that was you back there?
I was there.
When he got hit with that Unity ring?
Oh, sir. It's sir.
Let's see that. But that's like that timeless comedy, right? And, people don't understand why the Joker is the most powerful deck in the card. Like, depending on what game you're playing, the Joker is usually the most powerful card in the deck. And it's because the Joker or the comedian controls the emotion of the crowd, right? And it's when you said that, Meshelle, that addiction piece, it's like, yeah, you were powerful. You are powerful on that stage. You literally can make the whole room bust out in tears, right?
And that's and to your point, I gotta say this, Dr. Menzise, that is exactly why I look at it this way, in the so-called Renaissance times, or whatever you want to call it, I'll say it, the illumination of the barbarian. It was the jester that could say things that nobody else in the kingdom could say.
That's right.
And didn't have to be worried about getting his head cut off.
That's right.
So I fancy myself not so much a jester, but someone who can weave a narrative around, and without you even realizing it, I might be putting you up on some game. And I'm not trying to say I'm smart. It's just the way my mind works. And what I appreciate about comedy is, although I walked away during going into my 4th year of my doctorate, I'm able to create, these behavioral therapeutic moments through laughter. I mean, I'm such a blur, heavy on the black nerd, is that I did the research to realize that when you do laugh, it builds up your immune system. There's a chemical that is excretes from your brain called immunoglobulin A, and that relaxes you, and it's healing and all that. And so I'm still able to practice without having getting certified and having to support my dissertation. I'm able to practice this thing called weaving this behavioral magic. And so that is one of the main reasons why, even though I come from an educational psych background, all these years I've always kept my foot in on Black girls and women, creating spaces for them to really come to the know of their highest versions of themselves through mentorship and advocacy and impact. And so, interestingly, what Mike and I are doing now is a perfect segue to all the things that inspired me when I was believing I was studying to be a psychologist.
Right. When I was working as a clinician, that was one of the things I would often suggest to people, I still do, outside of the official capacity, but watch a comedy at night before you go to bed. If you're feeling bad, watch a comedy before bed. A lot of people fall asleep watching the news or some violence or whatever. Put on some comedy. I mean, just laugh yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Mike is a huge advocate of that. So Mike, I mean, you could tell him how when we started writing together. I guess you got to get to how the two of us from two totally different experiences came together.
Right. So it's interesting because, like you just said, that's what I do. I'll watch a funny video. I'll watch hours of videos that's funny before that's just my thing. Me and Meshelle started writing. What we have, Meshelle? We have like about what 10 to 15.
We got about at least, I know we've got at least a dozen TV and film concepts that we've registered and they're with the guild, but we started writing together about 7 years ago.
And in that, we were learning each other during the writing process. And I worked with a group up in New York City under the Department of Juvenile Justice called Project Pride, which was kids who had PENS cases in New York City, and they would get referred to me, and I became like their big brother. I used to have to do their backstory before sentencing. And then here, and we're learning this about each other. In our writing sessions of writing on different projects, she comes from a long history of working with girls, and my history is not as long as hers. So there was just little things we started noticing about each other. And what struck this whole title that we have now is we both discovered that her parenting style was totally different than my parenting style.
Okay.
Is that fair, Meshelle?
It is extremely different.
And so that's how we get to mothers know more, fathers know less.
Yes, mothers know best, fathers know less.
There we go. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Right. But we're not diminishing father's roles, because the father role is very important. You know, so that
it's
title,
critical.
That again?
The father's role is critical. Like it creates the balance. But what were you gonna say about the title?
Right. So a lot of folks, right, feel like we're going to be bashing fathers, and that is not the case. And that's why I come and see the show, because no one gets it right. But this concept is nowhere near bashing dads, because are very important.
Yeah. So give us a little hint, you know, an explanation on that title, because when I first saw, you know, of course, that's what's the immediate response is going to be is fathers don't know less, we just know differently, you know. And so what I finally settled on was, you know, fathers are more on the doer side of things, and so we might not necessarily be dealing with, you know, the information, the swaddling and all that type of stuff. We're more probably practically oriented. I'm sure I'm far off base.
I wouldn't say he's off base. You could give him your take on why, you know, how we came to this. Like how did we come to this title?
I just shared the fact that we both have two different parenting styles.
Right.
And what we decided, what we came up with, which is true, no one has it right. No one has parenting right. You go as you learn. No one has it right. There are some mothers who take on the father roles, and when I say that, the mothers are the enforcers in the parenting, the father's not. So it goes both ways, but it's right. Like no one is right. Your way of parenting your kids might be perfect for you, but if I try with my kids, it may not work.
Right, because we're different as parents, and the kids are different themselves. They're also unique.
Right.
And so one of the things that really drove us to this title, we actually have the same agent, and our agent was saying to us about a year ago, really want to get are you doing 3D, Mike? He was like, really want to get a project for you and Mike to work together on. He was familiar with our writing, but Mike and I filmed a television show back in 2019, right before the 2018, on True TV called Laugh Mob's Laugh Tracks. That was produced by Bob Sumner, the great curator of that Comedy Jam, alongside Russell and Stan Lathan. And in our show, we were acting out, we were doing our set, and then they would stage it, they would cast it as small mini shorts. And that's how we came to realize that we had similar writing styles in terms of our comedy. But then when I found out he had 5 kids, I was blown away. Like, I was like, what? And he knew that I had 3 by my husband, because I talked about it on stage. And but when I started hearing about his children, and you know, we're spending 8 to 10 hours in writing sessions, And so organically things would come up about parenting, and I would go, "You said what to your daughter? You did what to your son? And what happened?" Like and did they call Child Protective Service, or do you got any cases pending? Like, I was concerned for his life because I didn't know if he was gonna make it with the parenting style. But then when I started organically meeting his kids, they adore him. They simply adore him. Like, they adore him. He has 4 daughters and 1 son. And then his kids are older than my kids, except for the youngest one. And I was just like, this dude, whatever he's doing, is something in the soup. But I would not, I wouldn't go and like put a post. I wouldn't put a camera in his house, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I would not put a camera in his house.
Hey.
I would not put him on speaker. Like, don't ever call. I always say, take me off speaker. When one of his kids call him, they gotta take him off speaker.
Yeah.
And so, but we, as comics, we found the funny in that, Dr. Menzise. We saw the nuances of how, while, like he said, that might not work for somebody else. Obviously is working for his children. He has 3 college grads and a military veteran for daughters. Right. And now he has a son that's, in middle school. So it's like, you did something okay. They all graduated from college. They all did something, important. And then him having daughters first and me having my daughters first, he honestly would give me some insights that I wasn't getting from my husband, the PhD, the PhD. He ain't have some of that insight. And so I was appreciative of it. And so we just would poke fun. And I would go, oh my gosh.
It's so funny that you say that, Meshelle, because obviously my daughter is older than her daughters. And the very same thing I went through with my daughter, she was just going through it now. So I'd be like, hey, I read that book. I read that book. I know that book. I know that book. And yes, we do have totally different styles, but that's what it is. No one gets it right. And just because, right? Oh, you want to say that, Meshelle? You can give your kid the perfect setup to be great. Yep. It doesn't guarantee you that they're going to be great. They can act up.
Right.
Your kid could be an asshole. Like, they could be genetically predisposed to assholism. Somebody in your lineage, great somebody was an asshole, and it'll skip a generation and your kid will catch it. Or
pass it down.
They pass it down. It's a genetic predisposition. And while it may not be scientific, I'm here to tell you, because I was doing things that I thought would just set my kids up to just win. I mean, I became a comic and I pulled back from comedy when I became a wife and a mother. And I had 3 home births, Jeff. I decided to birth my children at home because I didn't want them to go through the trauma of making something so natural as birthing a medical experience. I didn't want to make a hospital wealthy. I knew that there were all kinds of implications for Black women that were birthing children, that we're more likely to die in birthing. We're more likely to have, more surgical matters, C-sections, and so, because it's convenient for the obstetrician, and everybody gets paid when it's a medical, when you make it a medical thing. I was like, I'm determined to have home births. I was on some, I'm tapping into the Nigerian in me, and I'm about to do this. And I did that. And then I was convinced, I'm not gonna do formula. I'm gonna breastfeed. Now I ain't got but 2 cents worth of, they ain't but worth 2 cents. But I'm telling you, I did everything I could to increase my milk. I took all the herbs. I did everything. I went to lactation consultant. Stuff that I'm a girl from Park Heights from Zone 15. I'm gonna need the people to go look up the zone. There wasn't a whole lot of like community around. Let's lactate. We will lactate. It wasn't no lactating ladies meetings in Park Heights, although I was far removed from my neighborhood by then. But I did so many things, Dr. Menzise. I made their baby food from scratch with organic veggies and calcified spring water. Like, I did all kinds of stuff. I packed 15 vegan lunches a week. They were born and raised as vegans. Like, all this stuff for me wasn't me trying to make like I was a better mom.
Right.
I felt like if I do these things, then they'll have a good start. And volunteering in their classrooms and going on field trips. And I was the mother that did the Kwanzaa presentations during the holidays because there was nobody else that was talking about Kwanzaa. We didn't do the big Christmas celebrations. I would come in and do Kwanzaa celebrations in these sometimes predominantly non-melanated school settings. I come in with my djembe and my, we would make canards and all kinds of stuff.
They
So
do it all.
yeah, and it don't mean nothing. Like
It means
God, when they start to get, my son has got a beard. He's 16 with a beard.
Yeah.
And my daughter's a 21, 19 college girl. They gonna do what they gonna do. Whoever they gonna be is gonna show up.
It's gonna show up.
It's gonna show up, and either you gonna deal with it, or it's gonna deal with you. And so I thank God for my therapist. I thank God for prayer, because I probably would have caught a charge by now.
Right. Because putting in all of that effort and all of that for them to have a Big Mac attack.
Or for one them to be like, you were never there. What? You weren't there. You don't understand. What? And so that's just honesty. So these are the kinds of things that we talk about in the show. We want to let mothers and fathers off the hook, especially the ones that look like us, because we often are believed that we don't parent.
Right.
And we parent.
Right.
So that's how we got here, Jeff.
And so let's talk a little bit about the show. Y'all got a show coming up on Thursday night, Baltimore. And so what I've heard about and what I've read about it is that both of you are going to do a set, and you're going to come together and have a Q&A and audience participation. You're actually encouraging parents and people to come in with their questions and the dialogue with y'all. Give me a run of the show. What is it going to look like on Thursday?
So Meshelle is going to open up with 30 minutes and going to come right behind her with 30 minutes. And afterwards, we're going to do a Q&A. And we're going to test some of those folks that's in the audience and ask them questions about their kids and whether they know it or not. Like that you don't, and the last show I believe we had in Harlem, there were more fathers that knew more about their children than mothers.
Wow.
So things like their blood types and all kinds of stuff.
This is predominantly Black crowds, and
so far.
Okay. Yeah, so we're in the infancy, we're in the genesis of the show. We wrote it out, we damn near, storyboarded it, diagrammed it. We've got other iterations of it in mind that are already in our minds. And but we launched it last month. We did our first show in Harlem at the only Black-owned comedy club in Harlem, which is a club called Comedy in Harlem. The only Black comedy club. Harlem? The only Black comedy club. Now, there's tons of clubs, but this is a real comedy club, and it's owned by two comedians who are a married husband and wife, Jamie Roberts and Nikki Sunshine. Nice. And so we launched the show at Comedy in Harlem to a sold-out audience. It was pretty much us in there, and it was just magic. And so now with our agents' thought process and our thought process, we're going to do one-offs. We're doing special engagements in as many cities that'll have us to test out the content. And Mike can tell you better than me because he toured with Chris for over a year. How long did it take Chris to do Selective Outrage?
About a year. Yeah, he toured with that for a year before he came out and did the special.
Wow.
That's the kind of background stuff that people don't see. Right. The comics who really believe in this craft of comedy, and we're not disrespecting anybody who's social media savvy. They've got 30 million followers and they just do sketch. I'm not, but those of us who really love what we do, and I'm not saying they don't love it, but those of us who have a different kind of appreciation of the art of stand-up, we want it to be tight when it finally goes to Netflix or Amazon or HBO, wherever it lands. We want it to be a well-oiled machine. And I was really fortunate to pop into some of those cities when Mike was on tour with Chris. And I was blown away at his work ethic. I was blown away at, if you go in his dressing room, not to tell his story, but the way he meticulously just deconstructs all of the bits and rewrites them. And Mike, as one of the writers on the team, having to take notes and come out. It was just, for me, it was magic. And so this show is just, this is the second performance of it. And I wanted to bring it to my hometown because I knew that we would have a safe place to land in terms of just a resource. So we're doing it at the Baltimore Theater Project, which is the first theater I've ever did my own first one-woman show. Nice. And so I took it back to the Theater Project. We've sold out days before. The show goes up in 2 days were already sold out. And so we're feeling really excited about it. So this will be our second time. And then we have in the queue Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, and Chicago.
Nice.
And so, hey, if you want us in the Natty, you know, you've got enough relationships, Dr. Menzise.
I'll pull
Mike,
some
you can
strings.
tell them about the other iteration of it, the parent engagement piece, which would make sense.
Right. So the parent engagement part is like after the show, correct?
No, and the ones that we're going to take to schools and those.
Yeah. So, well, you speak about it because that's your baby. But
so real quick, before we jump into that, I wanted to ask you a question though, Meshelle, about something you had said. You talked about the tour piece and how people don't really understand that part of it. And so just so we clear, when the artist tours before filming a special, they're actually trying out the jokes and they're getting their routine together. So that's kind of like the sparring before the actual.
Absolutely.
Right, because I want to make sure you were clear and articulate. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about your experience on that tour. Though, you know, Meshelle alluded to your room.
Right, it was. I learned so much. I've always known Chris, but the tour, like Meshelle just mentioned, he has to be one of the hardest working rich comedian that I know. Like he works like he's still poor. We had writing sessions a day. The material we started out with a year ago, like he added more, like he ended up with at least 2.5 hours of material and he just chose to knock it down. But he doesn't play. There's no girls, let's party, where we going to the club. He does not play when he's working on bits. And there's a lot of comedians out there who just go on tour. They don't for a whole year of working out a bit. He picks and chooses. He's a master. He's a master at this. And I learned so much because me and Meshelle will get to the status of the Chappelles and all of that. I totally believe that in my heart. But to see someone on that level working so hard just gave me a whole different perspective of making it and staying on top.
So stay hungry, right? Stay hungry and stay on that.
I'll never forget that one night when we were all in the dressing room, Mike, and Chris says, all my friends work every weekend.
Right. He says, my friends work, and he says they don't have no entourage.
Wow.
He says, my friends, and Seinfeld, Chappelle, all of those people are his, Adam Sandler, all of those are his friends. And he goes, my friends love to work.
Right. Wow. So that parenting piece.
So to be around that was inspiring. And it was like, man, just when I thought I had my shit together, like here it is. I should never, at this level where I'm at in comedy, I should never be walking around here saying I just need 5 days off when I'm around someone where every night there's no after parties, there's none of that going on.
Wow. Dope. I think in my former life I was a comedian, but I gave up on it. I could get on.
It's not for the same. It's not. Dr. Menzise, this ain't. I'm gonna tell you, hey, you might be cookout funny, barbecue funny, family reunion funny, but to literally get on stage with just you and a microphone is the most frightening thing you'll ever do because you're hoping that strangers will like you. You got people you're related to that don't even like you, and you want a stranger,
and they pay money.
Right.
Say it again.
And they paid their money to see you laugh. Try going to the Carré Royal Dutch Theater in Rotterdam, and these people here all speak Dutch and they understand English, but don't know how to connect to you. Try making those people laugh.
Right. You talk about the cross-cultural piece. So you have to be you have to be able to have social cues, and you got to, it's a whole different read of the room then. Wow.
I did my first tour ever in Holland last year. It was the first comedy tour. I've been on women empowerment tours with Procter & Gamble and Pantene and all this stuff, but I've never done a comedy tour because I guess I just wasn't cool enough. I don't know. But I finally did my first comedy tour, and I popped my cherry in Holland. And here I was trying to make people that speak Dutch laugh. And you can know how I did. How I do, Mr. Smooth?
No, she did very well. She did very well. the thing is that when you go over there, they understand English, but you can't speak fast, and they don't get none of our hip hop references. You better not go over there saying "mama and them" and "yo out now." Lost.
Wow. So that's some serious code switching there, huh?
Oh yeah.
Beyond.
What I did, I've been going there because I was in the military, so I was performing in all the military bases throughout England and Germany and stuff like that. And there, what I had to learn real fast is just research the culture.
Yep. And that's like when the comedian comes to your town and they might mention the mall, a local mall, so that they know we can relate on something.
Right.
So that's dope. So I cut you off earlier, Mike, because I wanted to go back to that touring piece, but you were about to speak about the parent empowerment piece that's going to happen after, but I think you had punted back to Meshelle on that.
Yeah, because that was her big, but yeah, go ahead, big.
So I've been in conversations for the last year with the.
I'm sorry to cut you. And tell her who are your friends, like your real friends, not your associates, but your real friends. Get to that part.
Yeah,
so,
get to
that. In my city. Tell them who's your friends in my city.
So the Chancellor of New York City Schools, David Banks, Chancellor Banks, the Deputy Mayor of New York City, Sheena Wright, and Miss Susan Taylor, formerly of Essence, for now National Cares, are all my friends that have been supporting my comedy and actually onboarding me in different spaces. When Chancellor Banks was the president of the Eagle Foundation for all of the Eagle Academies in New York, which are a consortium of Black schools for Black and Latino boys, I would come in and host his retreat for his educators. And I would, Susan would bring me in to do events for CARES, Sheena Wright, the Deputy Mayor Wright, I basically would live in her apartment. She's my sorority sister as well in Harlem. When
I'm sorry, could you reach out to the mayor? Do you have access to that?
I mean, and I've done some events where, because of the relationship with Chancellor Banks, I've had really close spaces with Mayor Eric Adams, and so they all have seen how I show up comedically.
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Oh, the police, and the police commissioner. The
police, in other words, well connected
in New York, in the city of New York. And so the chancellor, when he became chancellor, he wanted to onboard me in a way where I could use all the work I've done with parent engagement for the Eagle Academy and for CARES and all that. He wanted me to find a way to scale that for the Department of Education for New York City schools.
Nice.
Which is gargantuan.
Yeah.
New York City serves millions and millions of children and families. But he thought that it would be great for me to come up with a way to be a part of this pivoting of New York City schools. And so I said, I can only do what I do, and I want to do it as a comic. And so when we created Mothers Know Best, Fathers Know Less, I pitched it to him and his team as a tool for parent engagement for the DOE of New York. To get parents into the buildings, to get parents to start to have relationship with the educators in the building, and to get community partners to come in and work alongside parents in buildings to give these kids in New York City the best educational experience, period. And they love the idea. Right now we're in, I'm a registered vendor. So is Mike. He's always done work in the city, but as a comic, to be able to start touching something as big and bold as the Department of Education for the city of New York, all 5 boroughs, is pretty amazing.
That's amazing.
So we've not started a contract yet, but the beauty is that they're all on board. They're all on board with it. And it's been sanctioned as something that's a good concept. And so we're saying this when we're on our stages. We have 2 tiers to this show. It's a straight up and down entertainment show. It's a straight up and down comedy show. You're going to laugh your ass off. It is what it is. And it's a universal concept because everybody has a mother and father, whether you know them, like them or not. Right. Everybody named mother got a mother and father. So you're going to get that. But then if you want us to come on board, I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm sorry, you forgot to don't leave out. It's not for a mature audience.
Oh, our disclaimer is this show is not intended for mature audience.
Okay. Okay.
If you all deep and you so deep and buttoned up and you're so intellectual and so spiritual and so learned, this
Right.
ain't the show for you.
Yeah,
Like,
this ain't it.
this ain't it right here. You gonna have to go somewhere else, because we're gonna be our authentic selves, and
Yeah.
we're parents, and we have 8 children between us, and
Right.
we've volunteered in all of our kids' classes, and we've done field trips, and there's a lot of funny in taking somebody's kid that you don't know on a field trip. You
Right.
ain't gonna tell me you ain't seen some crazy ass taking
Right.
somebody else's kid. He got one of the best bits I ever heard about being a parent, taking a kid on a field trip. So we're using this as parent engagement and community building, and we're also using it as morale building for the staff.
Right.
We can come in and give you this comedy show experience to
Mhm.
bolster and lift up your spirits as an educator, because you guys don't get enough support. You just
Right.
don't get enough support. And so it's
And
3 tiers.
you're also letting parents know that they're not alone. With some of the stories you share, I'm sure it's
Absolutely.
relatable. They're like, okay, so your kids do
Right,
that
right.
too? Thank God, right?
Right.
And I've
Trust
been
me.
saying we're letting parents off the hook too, because we're
Right.
so hard on ourselves, especially. And I can only speak. That's why we said it's for mothers, it's mothers and fathers. We're not pretending that mothers really know best. No, I've seen some real jacked up. Working in the systems, I done seen some mothers who just should have been killed before they multiplied. It should ain't no way in hell
Right.
they should have had no kid.
Yeah.
You
Mike,
know.
what was you finna say though? You was about to.
So we're talking about things that parents would never say on stage about, right? And that's what it is. And you said it, Doc. They're gonna walk away feeling like I felt like I was the only parent that was going. I felt like this. And even for like the educators, they're gonna get something. Everybody gets something when we're finished with the show. Everyone leaves us, and we'll leave them during the Q&A and finding out stuff that might enhance my parenting. So I want it to be one night of laughter, and we just want to keep expressing that there's not one way to do it right. It's just not one way to be the perfect parent.
Right. And so Meshelle, you said 3 tiers. What's tier number 2?
So tier number 1 is the comedy show.
Yeah.
Tier number 2 is the facilitation workshop experience. And tier number 3 are the content that we're creating for television. So we have some things in the queue for television around this very same concept. And so, we've learned in being in this business, you don't talk about it until it's done.
There you go.
So we're really excited, but it's a lot of hard work. Come on, Dr. Menzise, you got to know how to write. I don't think people get it. You got to be able to write this so that somebody can see it. You got to be able, we're blessed that we can create it, perform it, and to be able to write it and articulate it in a space where you can understand it, so we can sell it. So
y'all are representing Shaw and Bowie and Brooklyn and Baltimore.
That's right.
It sounds like excellence to me.
Thanks, Dr. Menzise. That means a lot. So just so you'll know, we got some great partners. We got a great partner in our good dear friend Kenny Braswell, who runs Father Incorporated, based out of Atlanta.
Okay.
Going to be partnering with us to do some parent engagement with some of his programmers. So we're excited about that partnership. And again, if you have a consortium that you think could really benefit from bringing this parent engagement piece to them, you guys we can curate it just for your audience, just for your consortium. It could be a homeschool network. It could be, an interfaith school network. It could be, again, just us wanting to get together with other mothers and fathers or parent figures, grandmothers, aunties, anybody that put their hand and help raise that kid. They got stories and they want to feel like, they're not the only ones. And so it's an exchange, like Mike was saying. It's a reciprocal. You're going to give us something, we're going to give you something. And I don't think it's ever been done by 2 comedians ever.
And then how about those future parents? You know what I mean? Like, if y'all get on that HBCU network, like, all right, y'all thinking parents gonna be this, you make sure you're ready.
Right. That's true.
Wow, this is beautiful, y'all. So again, the show is taking place this Thursday, which is the 31st, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock at the Baltimore Theater Project. We are sold out. So thank you in advance. But of course, Dr. Menzise, we had something for you. If you make your way back home to Baltimore, we got you. But we are sold out. Super excited about it and really looking forward to having this experience in Baltimore. And then we will keep you guys posted for our exclusive dates in Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, and Detroit.
And maybe we might make our way to Cincinnati.
Hey, I'm gonna call my folks down there, and I know a lot of dope parent center organizations, and I know some comedy clubs and some comedians. We're gonna make that happen. You know, I will see you all, if not in Baltimore, for sure in Cincinnati, sooner than later, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Cincinnati, that's your stomping ground. And how about and look, we'd like to bring you on board to bring in that expertise, you know. Bring us to the natty, and we need a doctor that'll qualify some of the things we're speaking about in a way where it helps other educators and clinicians. And so yeah, for sure.
You know, I cut all my clinical teeth in DC and Baltimore with Progressive Life Center, you know, working with parents who have children in the foster care system or adoptive care services. So, you know, I've run that gamut, you know, so, you know, Meshelle, you already know, whatever you need, sis, I got your backs. And, you know, I got my other play cousin, Mike now, Brooklyn Mike. So
make it happen, man. We want to come to Cincinnati as well.
Let's make it happen, y'all. Let's make it happen. And I'm gonna try to catch y'all in Baltimore, and I'll let you know for sure tonight, Meshelle.
Let us know. But either way, we got you. Whatever city we're in, if you're adjacent to it, just let us know. You know, you're always good. Thank you so much for just inviting us to be on Mind on the Matter. I'm just really proud of your ability just to take all that you've done over the years and make it palpable and make it informative and interesting and entertaining. So thanks so much, Dr. Menzise, for having us on the show.
And see, my Caribbean family, they say you're supposed to put it to where the goats can get it. You know what I mean? You make you bring everything down to where it's accessible to even the goats.
I like that. You know? I like that. I ain't never heard that one. I like that one.
Are you from your family from the Caribbean?
Well, see, I did some work down in St. Kitts and Nevis, and so now I've got, you know, the St. Kitts petitions and divisions on my family at this point. You know, every now and then I feel like I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, and that's how I know I need to get back home. But much love to y'all, though. I mean, and congratulations on all this work, all the moves y'all making. I mean, you're taking, you know, you're in the tradition of our ancestors, the comedic ancestors, where it was more than just being about a laugh, even though a laugh is so important, but you all take it beyond the entertainment part, and you're actually putting in community well-being, you know, and focusing on what creates communities in the first place, which are the parents, you know. So much love to y'all. I mean, really salute you all for this work, because you didn't have to do it, right? And, you know, so it's apparent that you all are answering a higher calling, and I'm all for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Menzise. Appreciate you so much.
Take care, y'all, and I appreciate y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir.